Welcome to the Perk and Pace podcast, everyone. I'm Lydia.
And I'm Matt.
And today we thought we'd discuss 5 books that have changed my life. So Matt and I are both going to bring to you, books that we've read and have really had an impact on our lives. We're going to tell you a little bit about them. But first of all, we're going to kick it off with our weekly coffee. Everyone take a sip. I brewed this a few minutes ago. Should be drinkable. Oh. I'm not getting much from the smell.
Do you know, I've got a terrible sense of...
So,
Tastes a bit over-extracted.
why do you think that, Ian? Talk me through that. Let's unpack
you
that.
fucked it now, you're in the podcast.
Over-extracted?
Oh my god!
I think it's a little bit bitter.
Okay, I think that's the opposite. I think it's acidic. And the reason I say that is, think about, I think I said this in a previous episode, think about how it feels in your mouth. Is it filling your mouth with saliva or is it drying your mouth out?
Drying out.
Oh, okay. I think it's filling my mouth with saliva, which would imply acidic. This is from a roaster called Sweven, who are based in Bristol. They're really, really small, and they've actually got a really sick coffee shop.
Nice.
It's a really nice, like, you'd love the design actually, like really, really clean, like white marble, stuff like that. It's real like brew bar vibes. And this is from Peru, and it's a washed coffee, which is probably why it's not as sweet as ones we've had before.
Yep.
They reckon it tastes of red currant, lime and rose hip, and I definitely think that red currant, like red berry, maybe that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
like that aftertaste sort of,
yeah.
We'll get in the lime.
But yeah, I quite like it. It's
Oh god.
yeah, but I've, to give you some background, I've been giving Matt some like really wild, like natural, really, really sweet coffees. So yeah, this is a bit more like back to, let's say the
But
bitter.
the thing about coffee is it's totally...
It's personal, isn't it?
It's personal, yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Everyone's got different tastes.
Yeah.
100%.
So not every coffee is going to suit everyone's.
I actually think that would make a
palate.
really, really great espresso. I think if you threw that in
Yes.
a flat white,
That's such a good shout.
all of a sudden, that would
Yeah.
be a completely different vibe.
Or a
Yeah.
espresso
Yeah.
martini.
Next up, we'll get a Lamazocco sponsor, and we'll get a nice little one group head linear mini, please, guys, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
And then
Just chuck one in.
And then I can brew Matt a flat white.
Thank you.
Anyway, right. Books. Matt, do you want to go first?
Yes. So, the first one that I've got is Never Eat Alone, which is by Keith Ferrazzi, if I've pronounced the name wrong. So yeah, really good book for me. Definitely one that I'd recommend. All about sort of networking, how to build relationships. So you could take this across any area of your life, really. Some of the key things for me is basically, it's a book about cultivating relationships with people, but also about, you know, when people are networking, you've probably experienced it yourself. When you go to like a networking event or some sort of social gathering, you're thinking to yourself, what can I get out of it? This book really emphasises a lot of examples where it's all about like giving value first. So, which is a common theme throughout the book in terms of, you know, having the confidence to go to these events, putting yourself out there, but always with the mindset of how do you give value rather than taking it. So it's all about the importance of sort of generosity within networking itself.
Right.
And yeah, just a really good book about building authentic relationships and getting the most out of, you know, you are who you surround yourself with, which I'm a huge believer of.
Is that the one? Because I always hear this phrase. It's like you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around with.
Massive.
Is he the guy that said that? Or
I don't
is
think
that...
he's the guy that said that. Yeah, I might be wrong, but I don't think he mentions that in the book.
You do. I digress a little bit.
Yeah,
but
go on.
do you say you're good at networking? Do you like going to networking events?
I do. Yeah. It sounds really weird, but I'm a good storyteller. Like I'm good one-to-one with people. I can you know, I like to think that I can get people's vibes very quickly.
Read people well.
Yeah, I think, and without coming across too sort of aggressive or forthcoming. But I've had a lot of experience doing it from the corporate stuff, having to go to like big meetings and, you know, you got to judge people and that sort of thing in the right way.
You got to build rapport quickly.
Yeah, you have to just cut through the shit and get down to, you know, what value can I get, how can I solve their problems basically. And I think networking is a big part of that as well. You know, when people go to network, they're always, you know, it's difficult because you're nervous, you're in a big group of people, you think people are judging you, and it's like you've really got to, swallow the pill and just put yourself out there and, you know, engage, and don't be put off if they're not your crowd. That's part of the puzzle, right?
You wouldn't know unless you went and
No,
tried.
you wouldn't know, and you know, you probably know the same, that when you click with someone, you just get the energy, you get they've got the same sort of values as you, they're easy to talk to, and also don't forget that when you're networking in any capacity, you don't have to super like the people that you're networking with, which I think a lot of people think that you have to. You can, you know, if we're talking about business, you can do business with somebody that you don't like, and I think that's where most successful people are able to switch off that.
Yeah, it's not personal. You haven't got to invite them home for dinner, have you?
No, and they've not got to love everything about you. You've just got to serve them, and they serve you, and that's where the business relationship comes in.
I do think there's something though to like an underlying like set of values having to be in line though.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember a friend of mine ran like a media agency, and like one of her flat no's was like, I will not work with like a tobacco or an alcohol agency. It just wasn't in line with her values.
Yes, yeah.
But I totally know what you mean. Like I say this about the teams when they work together. Like you don't necessarily have to be besties.
Nope.
There have to be some values where you all get along and you don't want to kill each other. But you know, you don't have to invite them around for dinner.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, really good book if you're, you know, really interested in networking and strengthening
That's
relationships.
cool. I wouldn't say it's one of my strengths actually, so I'll probably pick that up.
Yeah, it's really
give
good.
it a read.
Yeah, easy read as well. Nothing like over the top.
Yeah.
Keeps you engaged throughout the pages.
Cool.
So.
I like that. Yeah, I don't like it when they're super scientific and you just...
Yeah, loads of tables and stuff.
Yeah. So my first book, so by the way, Matt's shaming me here because he's brought real books and he looks legit and I'm a dirty Kindle reader. So I don't have physical... Or if I read a physical book, I give it away because I don't really like having them around. So I have this like unofficial Lydia book club where like I give them away and like people, we talk about them. But yeah, anyway. So my first one is called The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. And this one, have you read it?
Nope.
This one's, it's kind of like the Bible for anyone that has a process-driven business. So I read this right at the beginning, like 7 years ago when I first opened a business. Yeah. And it follows the story of a woman that owns a pie shop. And the business starts to run her because she has a finger in every pie, so to speak.
Love it.
The analogy works. And I had worked for somebody before who was really into processes. And like I'd already learnt a lot of that from her.
Yeah.
But I've spoken on previous pods about like how I still was trying to do a lot of things and trying to be in a lot of places.
Spin too many plates. Sort of
Absolutely. Yeah. So this really took me on the journey of being like an owner operator to being a leader owner and the difference there. And I think if your business runs you, you need to read this book, 100%. And it covers all the really scary stats like, you know, 40% of new businesses fail in the first year, or like 80% in the first 5 years. And it goes through like the common pitfalls, the commonalities between those businesses that have struggled and ultimately failed. The real mic drop moment for me in there though was when he starts talking about you can't just focus on the product. Because I was really like, we're going to have a great product and the product's going to speak for itself, which absolutely is a core value of our business, quality. But it can't just be that. There have to be procedures, processes, so that product is ultimately the product. The customer experience is every day the same.
It's non-stop. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's consistency.
So yeah, the E-Myth. It's a big one. Like I would be remiss not to mention it as someone that runs like a process-driven business. It's a big one for anyone.
And there was loads of like actionable takeaways as well from the book.
100%. Yeah, I think it's been, like I said, it's been 7 years since I read it, but I believe at the end of each chapter there was a takeaway of like go and do this, go and do that, and there were definitely things that I have implemented in my businesses.
Sick.
Yeah, man.
Nice. Cool. Next one for me then is this one, Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday.
Which I'm shaking my head at because the second on my list is read this, Matt.
Ego is the Enemy, Ryan Holiday.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Really like an author that has done a few books. So he's responsible for The Daily Stoic, which was one that I was thinking about bringing. It's all around Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius and that sort of, how to manage your daily life from a mental and physical capacity. But Ego is the Enemy was, I think, his third or second book that he brought out. Yeah. But ultimately it just explores the, unhealthy belief that we believe in our own source too much is the best way to put it. The book's basically divided into 3 sections. So you've got aspiration, so how the ego affects things before you get to success. Then there's the ego during success and how you manage that devil on your shoulder. And then it's also got how you manage your ego during failure and setbacks, which is really cool. So that's why the book is structured really well, and it's a super easy read. There's a few really cool quotes as well that I just wanted to mention from the book. So the fact that, you know, the book really highlights that ego blinds us to growth, creativity and collaboration. It's impossible to learn that which one thinks one already knows, which is a huge one.
Yes.
You know, thinking that you know everything can get in the way, and it's really just about self-awareness and managing your own arrogance. And I think arrogance is good in certain aspects of your life, because you have to believe in your own source, and you've got to back yourself. You've got to, you know, back your vision and what you're building or doing. But you know, we've all got that monkey on our shoulder of our own ego and arrogance in failure and success. I think is the big one, because everybody always, you know, says that they try to manage their ego during failure, which is often, you know, probably 50 to 70% of the time.
Interesting that you mentioned that about success and failure, because one of the things I highlighted from that book was the idea that when something goes right, you pat yourself on the back.
Yeah.
When something goes wrong, you look elsewhere and you try and point at other people. And that was such a mic drop moment for me. I was like, fuck, I do that.
Yeah.
And the reason this book spoke to me so much was because I'm a failed performer. I always wanted to be the centre of attention, always, kind of still do. But like, it helped me turn into the kind of leader who listened more.
Love that.
Rather than just like filling the silences all the time, speaking all the time. And that thing about ego, like you say, it's great to have that confidence, fake it till you make it, but not letting it get in the way of your development.
Yeah.
I think that's the 100%. Difference, right?
And there's one last quote that I've got here that basically says, you must practice seeing yourself with a little distance, which is, you know, having that sort of helicopter view of taking your emotions out of the scenario and almost looking down at, you know, what needs to be addressed.
That during success thing as well, I just remembered a story from within it about, I want to say a successful football player or NBA player who, no matter how many millions he made, he still drove the same old banger car because he was like, I don't need to believe this hype, I don't need to get into it. And again, like, I'm someone who, I'm better at it now, but I used to love spending money before I even had it. And even just little stories like that, it just challenged the way you think a little bit.
Yeah, great book, really good read. Yeah.
Well, that was my second one too. Okay, well, I'm going to go on to my third.
Yeah.
So my third book is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And this is a really, really recent read for me. But when I say changed my life, it genuinely has changed my life. Because I now do the same morning routine every morning. I get up at the same time every day, no matter whether it is a Monday or a Saturday or a Sunday.
Really? Even on weekend? Like, wow.
100%. Get up and do the same thing.
Yeah.
This routine of, I get up and I do a little bit of meditation, I journal, I write down, I do some stretching, and then I read for 15, 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I was somebody who always used to say, but my sleep is so valuable to me, I need to get sleep. But all that means, and all this book made me realise, is that I'm valuing that evening time over the morning time. And really, what am I doing in the evening?
Yeah.
I'm sat watching a movie or just wasting
Switching
time.
off,
And fine, that is valuable. It's really
yeah.
valuable. But actually, I get loads of energy from those moments. And this is it helped me realise that I get loads of energy from those moments of solitude, the moments of reflection, and from like reading a book. Yeah. So it was like, factoring that in every morning has genuinely made me a calmer person. It's made me less reactive to things that are happening, and it's helped me be more present in the moment, because I struggle a lot with like my mind chattering and not being present. So it's still a work in progress. I'm not a completely changed person, but prioritizing the morning over that evening time and then getting up at the same time every day has helped me sleep better.
I was just saying, there's definitely something about, you know, when people are like, you've got to eat the frog first thing. There's just something powerful about doing something challenging first thing. Yeah. Because you just feel like the rest of your day it's not going to be a breeze, but it will be a lot easier, and you'll get that little bit of a dopamine hit. You'll get that little bit of, I've done something that's ticked off.
Totally right.
Yeah, and it just keeps the day rolling. So yeah, love that. My next one.
Go.
Yeah. This one's a really cool one, slightly different to the first two. Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. I'm a massive film buff, and he's one of my man crushes.
He's great.
Yeah. All right. Clickbait. Yeah, so this is like, it's like a bit of a memoir and a bit of a sort of a living life from his perspective and how his journey's gone over the years through acting. It's got like life lessons in it, it's got personal stories, and it's got the concept of green lights. So he talks about the concept of green lights referring to basically the moments when life gives us permission to move forward, obviously the traffic light analogy. So there's also an emphasis on those red and amber lights that you'll get. So things like obstacles and delays that might come up in your life, whether it's grief or trauma or work or relationships, whatever, and the importance of growing and transforming basically through that analogy. But it just really resonated me with the whole system of green, red and amber. Like these are the, you know, sometimes in life you're just going to catch green lights. Things are just going to go well, you're just going to be smashing it, but then all of a sudden you're going to come to a crossroad and it's going to be a big red light and you've got to navigate it. So it's a really personal read. There's loads of really cool like pictures in there. There's loads of family stuff in there. It talks about his relationship with his dad, which is really close to home, and it's just great. It's just a really good, honest, like personal read.
You've got like his manic scribbles in there as well, haven't you, from his journal?
So, I'll show you actually.
Yeah.
It might be worth just looking.
And he's just a great storyteller, isn't
Yeah.
he? And I don't think, well, because I read it a while ago, and I don't think I saw that coming. I think a lot of people have underestimated Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Good for him.
I'm trying to show you some scribbles that he's got.
Well, he talks about being underestimated with his acting career.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, like that's just the first open page where you can see there's some really personal photos, some cool little quotes. But he's a big fan of journaling.
Yeah.
That's why all of this comes from years and years of journals that he went through, and he's just pulled quotations and scenarios in life and put them in a book, which is fucking
Ballsy
incredible.
to share that in the
Oh, yeah.
public domain as well.
Really vulnerable, but
Yeah.
like amazing book. Amazing
Nice.
book.
Okay,
maybe we should all just have a moment to.
And he totally improvised that. All right.
Oh yeah.
What a
that
legend.
was in one of his first movies. Yeah.
Legend. So my next one is called Grit by Angela Duckworth. Which, Matt, show us your next book.
For fuck's sake, mate.
I swear to God, we didn't plan this.
No, we
Matt's next book is also Grit by Angela Duckworth. So, Angela, so her overall argument in this book is that talent and intelligence are not the most important elements in someone's character. They're not the most important elements to success anyway, but actually it's about how gritty you are. And grit is, in her words, the ability to carry on under pressure or to come through challenges, like to grow through challenges and to learn from them rather than being defeated by them.
Yeah.
She relates it to your relationship with childhood and therefore like who is more likely to be gritty, like if you've been through some turbulent shit in your childhood, and I related to that a lot. Like I had a bit of a wild childhood, and it's like, I had to like, this makes sense, and it's really nice to understand yourself, isn't it? Like I don't want to always just read books that confirm things I already think or just make me feel better about myself.
Challenge the way that you think.
You want to challenge yourself sometimes, but this was a big like, okay, like moment. But importantly, for anyone who maybe is thinking, but what if I'm not particularly gritty and what if I do give up? You can teach yourself to be grittier, and it goes into detail about that. It's not an either or situation.
No, and it's a book about. There's loads of academic research behind it because she runs an institute in the States, and she's worked with like the Navy SEALs and Royal Marines, and it works out. You know, she's got a grit scale that you can all check out online, so you can look at the score that you get. But all about the fact that passion and perseverance ultimately outweigh talent. So, you know, it's not how talented you are, it's how willingful you are. Is that a word? Willingful?
It is now.
It fucking is now. You know, your willingness to just persevere and persist with stuff. And there's a quote that I've got down here, which is enthusiasm is common, endurance is rare, which is just like,
that's a good one.
It fucking sums up everything.
That's a new tattoo.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that on a brand.
See if I can endure the pain.
No, it's interesting though, isn't it? Because you talk a lot. I've heard a lot about this like 10,000 hours of practice thing, where like if you want to master something, you have to. And it's like that is actually only part of it. You can't just, I mean, it takes a lot to do the 10,000 hours. You can't just rely on the talent. And I can think of loads of people I know that have loads of talent. Just can't be asked.
Yeah, they've just got no will, no lasting power.
100%.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, go on, Matt, what we got next?
So the last one for me, this is a recent read for me. So I've got a bit of another man crush. I have a lot of man crushes. Ian, you're one of them.
Is that my new book?
Yeah, sure. It's Ian's new book.
I'm the subject of many man crushes by Ian Snape.
Yeah.
Mine's just a picture book.
Personal picture.
Pop-up book.
I didn't really like that.
Yeah. So this is The Algebra of Wealth by Scott Galloway. So Scott Galloway is he's an American guy. He is a professor of marketing at, I think it's NYU in the States. But his background is serial entrepreneur. He's created and failed multiple businesses. I think his last big business was an insights and marketing company within the sort of fashion and retail sector. Sold it for like 160 million to Gartner, which are a big insights company. So he talks about his, story of failure and success, but it's so raw. Like, you don't hear successful people talk about this sort of stuff, which is why I really resonated with it. He talks a lot about equality, especially within young men and men struggling in today's society. But the sort of premise of the book is this sort of formula that he's got for wealth. And when he talks about wealth, he obviously talks about monetary wealth, but this formula also takes into account things like stoicism. It talks about planning ahead. It talks about almost, giving people the structure to get that financial freedom, no matter what it looks like. So,
which is something people gatekeep quite a lot. I
think. Big time. And the formula that he's got is focus plus stoicism plus time and plus diversification, which, to try and simplify it down, is basically, you've got to... He talks about a lot about when people say, oh, follow your passion, but... people who say that are already fucking rich.
Yes.
They're the ones that are already fucking doing really well. So that's complete bullshit. You need to find out what you're good at and almost double down on it and have a focus. If you're good at telling stories, or you're good at building relationships, like, double down on it. You might not like it, but it's your skill. He talks a lot about even things like when people have these, which there's nothing wrong with it, but when people have these fucking fairy tale ideas that they're going to be a DJ or an actor, it's like only 1% of actors actually make any money. When you look at like the SAG Actors Fund or studio, whatever they call it, most actors are like hardly paying rent. They never get by. They're earning less than whatever a year. So rather than thinking you're going to make that exceptional level of the 1%ers, double down on what you're really good at, and nail it from there. And then the whole piece around stoicism is the discipline around your habits, because your habits ultimately formulate your...
You are what you do
Yeah,
every
you are
day,
what you do, yeah. And one of the quotes that he's got from the book is, which I thought was really interesting, is the single best investment you can make is the time and energy you spend on finding the right life partner. Yeah, which I think is huge, because again, it's probably the person you spend the most time with, in terms of having the same sort of values and that around money and life and progress. But it's a really good book. It's a new book that's just come out as well.
Cool.
So yeah.
He sounds like an interesting character.
Yeah.
My final book is called Radical Candor, and it's by a woman called Kim Scott, who, if you're not familiar with her, she's a total badass. She's really cool. She's done a lot of courses, like masterclasses that you can buy. So what she does is really challenge the perception of being the boss and what that means. Because obviously there used to be the old school boss who reigned by fear, and you get results from people that way. You can do, but they're ultimately not becoming the best versions of themselves, because you can't perform well when you're scared. You can't. People flourish when they're given the freedom to develop and to try new things. So she really helped me on the journey of being, or is still helping me on the journey of being, a different kind of leader. She talks a lot about encouraging and challenging people directly, but in a caring manner. Now, I talk a lot about challenging somebody being a love language. Like, actually sitting down with somebody and having the difficult conversation.
It's leading with empathy, isn't it? And
But, like, even if... Like, I've sat down with people that I work really closely with, and I've been sitting on my hands because I'm so nervous about how... I don't want them to see that I'm shaking. But ultimately, what I'm saying to this person is I care enough about you to have this difficult conversation and to tell you about yourself. And one of the people I work with now actually then uses that with the people that he manages.
Amazing.
He's like, Lydia called me out.
Yeah.
Lydia has, like, so I'm going to do the same for you.
Yeah.
It's really great to see that. But so she talks about, so that's what radical candor ultimately means. Like, you are being candid with people in a really direct way, but in a caring and empathetic way. She talks a lot about how to do that as well. There are actionable steps on how to do it. But then she has proven stats around how that helps employee retention, how it helps improve and like grow the team through helpful guidance. And like I said, having the tough conversation while showing genuine care.
Yeah.
So I actually listened to this as an audiobook, and that was maybe like 3 years ago, and I'm thinking about going back and reading it as paper again. I feel like because I've developed so much in the last 3 years, I'd like to visit it again and see what else I can get out of it.
I always think of, especially when having difficult conversations, and obviously it's a super old analogy, but it's like delivering a shit sandwich. It's like you've got to go in with, okay, well look, this is the reason why I'm about to discuss some of the things that we want to speak about. Give the feedback, which is quite raw and honest, but then also follow it up with a layer of, this is what we want to do moving forward, this is what I think we can do. So
but I think with that I always follow it up with like, I'm only saying this because I believe in you and I believe you're so good. If I didn't think there were hope here, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And that always just seems to be the buffer that a lot of people need. Like, oh yes, she's saying it because she cares. And so it's quite a big book. There's a lot of good shit in there.
I'm going off topic now, but do you think the majority of people can actually have the capacity to have a shit conversation and not take it personally?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Like, and I actually talk about this a lot with some of the guys that I manage about like trying to separate the emotion from that conversation, which is hard, especially like in a lot of industries, but ours as well, is that there's a lot of passion in our industry. A lot of chefs, baristas, like they really have a lot of pride in what they do. So trying to get them to separate, this is a professional conversation. It's not me saying you can't cook, you're shit, you're not creative. Like, because there's so much ego and passion wrapped up in there, and that's beautiful. Don't ever want to squash that. Yeah,
it's interesting because I like, again, not going off topic, but I think they should even sort of teach this sort of stuff at school level.
Preach.
Because it's all about just how much you can remember, and your teacher is very much like, well, you can't talk back to me. There's no radical candor. There's no open feedback. So when you come out of the school system, or even university level, and you go into the working world and you get slapped in the face with a one-to-one or a really difficult conversation, you're almost like, what the fuck how do I fucking manage this?
Also, I've said before, I'm employing a lot of young people, and I'm meeting people whose parents have not done a good enough job at giving them tough feedback. If the first time that 16, 17-year-old is hearing any kind of negative feedback is from their line manager in their part-time job, why has your parent never said to you, you know what, that's not really the way you should have dealt with that, maybe try this next time? I'm not saying all parents are like this, I'm not, but like, we need to get better at hearing these things. Yeah, definitely.
Guys, we're going to put all these books in the podcast link, so look, if you're struggling with anything, if you need to have some sort of direction, these are the books that we recommend. They are fucking ace. Please like and subscribe to the podcast, and thanks for listening.
Bye.